matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter, 'cause I feel so free now. It doesn't really matter.
I just assumed I'd play the part of keeping you in the right direction. No matter how your confidence may fall, I'll be here as your foundation. And I say, hey, yo, just let it go. Your struggles won't remain. And I say, hey, yo, we're holding hope and wake up yesterday. So hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to more HLTV confirmed on a Wednesday night, at least here in Europe. We have guests from all the way across the Atlantic. Sean, are you here? You're looking out the screen.
I'm here.
With us today, we have Sean Gares, none other than. How's it going, Sean?
It's going pretty good. It's a little bit early for me, 11 a.m. Yeah, this is right about the time I would wake. No, I'm just kidding. I would probably be doing something at this point, but feels good to be here.
Also, along with this, I want to start with striker now, Lucas. I know we're gonna get to you eventually. I know you put on that shirt for some attention. I will give it to you eventually. First up, I'm Yossarian, and we also have striker from Czech Republic, and then we have in Barcelona the new professor, it would seem, from HLTV. LucasAM, what's going on with the sweater, man?
There you go. I have my CS academic outfit on with the books behind me and everything. So ready to talk some CS.
So whenever we get down to the analytical stuff, you'll pull out one of those.
Yeah, because there's a lot of books on CS.
Exactly. So we have a lot of topics to cover tonight, guys. Looking back at ECS, looking forward to the two events we have during this weekend. Some viewer questions. By the way, guys, if you have anyone in the chat watching, if you have questions for Sean, for us, for Lucas's sweater, whatever, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll pull them out as we go along. Mainly, where did you buy it? I think that's definitely going to come up. There's been like a suspicious amount of questions regarding the attire of people on the show. Usually it's Prof.
Yeah.
What shirt he's wearing, where did he get it? Did he wear it last time? So anything you can think of, put it in the chat and we'll pick it up. So let's start out with you though, Sean. We usually always do like a little
Sure.
pre-show interview with the guest. And I was thinking this could have been better time than having you on right now, since you guys all guys club qualified for the closed qualifier for the qualifier, right? I think that's how you put it, right?
How are you going to do us dirty like that? You're going to say that we just qualified? We dominated the competition. Yeah, I don't know. We honestly didn't have the team ready. We didn't think we were going to do it until 24 hours before that minor qualifier, the initial one, a couple days ago. So we're kind of just winging it. The day of the first match, I was like, Švejda's got to know that if we win this, we have to go to Poland. And we double-checked with them to make sure that that was okay before we actually started playing. And yeah, they're okay with going to Poland. So we're not going to like practice as far as I know. I mean, Švejda said he wants to practice. If he wants to practice, we might do a couple. It's nothing too serious. We kind of just wanted to give everyone that feel-good feeling of, streaming all the matches and stuff like that because people enjoy that. And yeah, we're just going step by step.
I mean, if nothing else, you guys took over Reddit completely. If you visited like from the last 12 hours, I guess. It's like been only you guys on the main page. So at least you have that, right?
I mean, that's the only thing, right? Like, what else is there? Wins, losses, frags, deaths. Who cares when you got Reddit, right?
Well, you have some pretty good names in there. But hey, man, it was. I mean, the playing was pretty nice. Tell me how it came to be that you played with this lineup for the qualifier, because you've been playing with some other guys. Jordan was in there, but why did it become Shroud and Sky and the guys who actually ended up playing the qualifier?
So Silent actually was orchestrating the whole thing. He messaged me, I think probably first with Jordan, asked if we could play the minor, gave us the dates. I didn't think so it wasn't until like a couple weeks ago he realized that I was interested in playing the minors and just seeing how it goes. And he confirmed with me that I'd be available on these dates. And same with Jordan. Jordan was like on the fence whether he'd want to do it or not. He's like, hold up, let me ask Švejda and Ska. And ironically, I actually had him over for Thanksgiving a couple days before, but I didn't think that we'd be doing this. So we didn't talk at all about playing CS or the minor or anything like that. Jordan got in touch with them. We ended up, they agreed to everything like I said before. And yeah, it's not like we're not trying, right? If people watch us, we're actually, yes, we're pugging. We haven't practiced, but we're running setups. We're flashing for each other. We're kind of doing like piecework strats as much as you can without knowing like all the set nades, playing rotations really well. So it's not like we're not trying. We're definitely trying.
While you're on expectations, I just want to know if like this is the basically 4/5 of the summer of 2015 Cloud9 lineup, right?
Yeah,
so
basically.
Can we expect at least 4/5 of the same like success?
So I'm gonna go ahead and throw out the obvious joke and say that Cloud9 at a major lull, we're gonna go out in groups. So 4/5 is the success. We're not even gonna make the major. Ha!
All right.
But maybe. So,
you have to be realistic.
I don't know. Low hanging fruit. I had to beat everyone else to it,
So obviously there's got to be something kind of lingering since you guys can do so well. I know, Shroud's skills obviously aren't going away. I guess does that also count for your your leading style? Can you like feel that it's the same? I know that without strat it's probably hard to do it like you used to, but you haven't played since what, January? I think was it the Boston Major where you went out. So how much of it actually lingers on in terms of playing for real?
That's the thing. I don't know. A lot of people say in-game leading styles fade, but if you in-game lead based on rotations on maps are always going to be the same. Like when you play CT side of maps, you're always going to spread out in the same exact ways. Dust 2, you're typically going to send 3 people towards the A site, 2 people towards the B site, and you push and pull rotations with utility. That's never going to change. It's never going to change. So I highly doubt there's going to be a time where 5 people play the A bomb site or 4 people go B. It just wouldn't statistically work over time. So the in-game leading style that I have was always based on rotations and pushing and pulling rotations, and I don't think that it would ever fade. Obviously, the utility used to push and pull those rotations and the effectiveness of trading and flashing out places, that stuff changes. So learning new pop flashes and stuff like that, pretty important, but nothing too crazy.
I think it's safe to say though, you're not demo reviewing, right? You're not end trading as you used to.
So ironically, actually, on a couple of those MDL matches that we won towards the end of the season, I was actually looking at a lot of demos, and well, not a lot. I'd watch like one before the game, and those teams were kind of easy to read because they don't have deep playbooks. It's not like, you know, playing against the top teams that have layers and layers to their strats and can, you know, abuse rotations. So I didn't obviously do that for the minor though, because we didn't know who we were going to play and blah, blah, blah. And I probably won't continue to do that because I don't think it's that serious. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see.
It's pretty definitely, it's pretty clear to see that you guys don't really know how seriously you're going to take this. Like, so it's obviously, you even called it troll matches in our conversation, at least the MDL ones. So how far, and this was a viewer question as well, how far are you going to have to take it before you start taking it seriously? Because at some point, competition is going to expect you guys to not troll, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, right? Even when we put those MDL matches on stream, it's like, yeah, I want to play for fun, but I also don't want to embarrass myself on stream. You know, like I don't want to come into these matches like super dry, which sucks because that's typically what was happening in that MDL season. I'd be traveling, doing analyst gigs. Jordan would be traveling, doing like influencer stuff at events. You know, like he'd do stuff for ATT and MSI. So we'd be coming into these matches without playing CS for weeks sometimes. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen before the minor, but it definitely could. I don't think anyone has any events planned or anything like that. So it's one of those cool times where we can actually not, you know, coming cold into matches, which is kind of cool. No pun intended.
Exactly. Is it true that you guys are thinking about bringing in the Dr. Disrespect? Because it seems to be like all over Reddit that if you guys go to Poland, he's going to be behind you. How much truth is there to that?
I have no idea, actually. So when Shroud first said that yesterday, he was like, yeah, Doc's going to coach us. I was like, how does Shroud know Doc from FPL Europe? Like, you know, Doc DOCC? I thought he was talking about that Doc. And then when I realized he was talking about Dr. Disrespect, I was like, how did he pull this? Like, how would Doc ever agree to this? But now we got CSGO dev account tweeting out about it. So I don't know, man. Maybe they can give him a sticker that will pay his day rate or something.
I mean, to be honest, like with the popularity that you guys have, like only from Shroud and you would have with like Doc combined, you would sell so much fucking shit. Like if you did like t-shirts or whatever with like Old Guys Club, unless you already do that, I don't know.
There
But
was
if you did
that guy.
you'd actually make a lot of money on.
There was a guy who
on
designed
that.
it, right?
Actually, all the jerseys from OGC, the proceeds all go to Gamers Outreach. So anyone that buys an OGC jersey, which I don't have the link, I'm sorry, I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm sure it's on the OGC Twitter somewhere, but all the proceeds go to charity. So that's a really cool thing you guys can do.
I mean,
That's
the combination
another
of
thing you can pull Doc on, I guess.
the combination of you guys and then him would be like what CSGO needs to bring down Ninja as the most popular streamer or esports player, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's got to be some kind of combination of that to actually reach him.
Yeah, it would be pretty epic. I was saying yesterday, if we actually make it, I will use every attack timeout just to hear his, you know, words of advice.
Oh man, I mean, here's to petitioning IEM or ESL to release the comms. No, it's been a while.
That
Right?
would be hilarious.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I mean, because one question I wanted to ask you also is obviously you have the analyst career going. You had some pretty big events this year, including the major. So not that that's probably not fixed yet, but do you have anything of that sort lined up as well, or do you have to kind of play first to see how far you get, I guess, before you know how you can commit?
So the only reason why I was able to do this in November is because I canceled a lot of the gigs I had in November. And then December, I don't think I have anything planned in December. I know one org reached out to me like a long time ago, organizer. Maybe, obviously, I feel a little bit tied to this now at this point. Like when I qualify to this, so I don't know if it overlaps. I'll have to decline it. And then, yeah, that's the weird thing is like Jordan was like, yeah, I'm gonna be probably going to the major anyway to do stuff for random, you know, company sponsors. And I was like, yeah, what if I'm actually an analyst at the major? Like, how is that gonna work?
Well, you did that before, right? Because obviously,
Yeah,
so if you
yeah.
go, you're going to be going out in the mid qualifier, or maybe before or after that. Then there's always the new champion stage again, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Like that's true. That's what I did at the last E-League major, right?
Yeah.
I played in the challenger stage, and then I did analyst for the rest of the tournament, right? Something like that.
That's pretty good riding the fence right there. But other than that, how's the transition been? Obviously, it's not the first time you took a quote unquote a break or retired or whatever you want to call it. But this has definitely been, I think, the longest of your breaks so far. And then you've been doing all these events this year. What's it been like, for example, going to London and doing the major for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun doing the actual events. It was actually very hard when I first stopped playing because I had that super competitive drive that I just wanted to like instantly sign into a new team. Like it's like almost inherent in me to like fight that. Like I have to fight that actually in order to not do it, because I was like I want to see what it's like taking time off from the game and doing analyst gigs. And I did. Like I completely took myself out of the game for a while. And I've just been doing the analyst stuff like you just said. And it's actually a lot of fun. Going to events without pressure, being able to meet fans, not having to do like tons of review over all the teams. Obviously, you do have to review as an analyst, especially when there's teams that you didn't really see in the previous tournaments. Like Star Series, this last Star Series was really weird because there wasn't many top 10 teams. So I had to like look into all these teams and understand how they play the game before going into that. But yeah, it's a new way to approach events. Obviously, like it's very different from when you're a player. Every experience is so much different. I would get hardly any sleep as a player, whereas an analyst, I mean, I come pretty prepared, and once you're there, you don't have to do much preparation from like beforehand because you're talking about all the matches that occurred at that event. Whereas if you're a player, you have to prepare even on the days like of the tournament. Like you have to play your match and then watch a shit ton of demos. Obviously watching the live stream doesn't do it justice because you can't see the full picture. Whereas if you're an analyst, you could watch the stream and get a pretty good idea of how a team's going to play.
And also, I want to ask you, there was a rumor out that several teams actually approached you as maybe a potential coach. Is that something you can shed a light on? Is that something you'd want to do?
Yeah, so I would say definitely a few of the top 10 teams. I'm not going to say who, but several of the top 10 teams approached me about coaching. And it's just not something I'm too sure about. It's definitely a big plunge to take. I'm not saying I'm never going to do it. I think it's a great job, obviously. I think I would do it pretty well, in my opinion. But there are negatives to it. Like, I feel like you're very tied to really making the team want to win. Like, if I were to accept the coaching job, obviously I would never be able to do analyst gigs. I would never be able to feel comfortable streaming when I'm at home. I never feel comfortable releasing YouTube content. All of those things are things that I like doing right now, right? So that's like my main reason for not diving into the coaching thing right now. Those things that I would miss, right? And I think there probably will be a time when I want to do it, and I don't know. Maybe at that point I'll revisit it.
So does it also, as far as I'm concerned, I can see that in-game leaders or coaches, also analysts and managers are getting maybe an increasingly bigger role, at least with the tactical way of playing Counter-Strike that's kind of made its way into the upper echelons, or at least becomes more important. Does it also have to do with the pressure that would be added if also considering your, history as an IGL and the very analytical way that you looked at the game? Would you feel pressured to actually make a team have an instant success, looking at how important coaches are at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would try to like it fully like enforce my style on the team. Like, I think that a coach, I I think it's like very 50-50 as far as like you have to be there emotionally for the players and lift the mood, as well as like the strategic aspect, you know, the X's and the O's. That's why I think someone like Zonic and someone like Zeus are such excellent coaches, because the emotional support that they bring to the team is only half of the value that they have. And that's, you know, what everyone sees. Everyone sees Zeus's leadership, Zonic lifting the players up, you know, when the times are tough, being very emotional behind them. And that's only half of what they do. They do so much behind the scenes as far as tactically finding new nades, researching teams and things like that. So,
is this a top 10 team calling you right now?
That was Lucas. That was Lucas. I'm innocent.
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought it was like you're getting contacted right now. But I feel like that sounds like right up your alley. The way you're describing it kind of sounds like the Sean Gares I came to know in 14, 15. You know, the analytical way of lifting up a team, right? Why wouldn't that be like a perfect fit for you?
No, I agree. I think I would do a pretty good job if I were a coach. Obviously, that's my ego talking, right? Like, who knows how it would actually pan out? But I do think I'm pretty well suited to do something like that at this stage. Like, obviously, like if you were to ask me that 10 years ago, I'd have been like, oh man, my ego's out of control. Like, I would never let someone tell me what to do in a situation. And my ability to talk to people back then isn't what it is now. You know, like I know that different people on a team, and I think that's something that's very important for a coach, right? To understand that a silent conservative figure on your team needs to be spoken to in a very different way than someone like, you know, when me and Jordan talk to each other when we're on a team, holy shit, dude. People will think we hate each other sometimes, but the next round we can brush it off. Not everyone is like that though. You know, like I think it's important to realize that. And obviously I think some stuff like that comes with age. So I think I'd be pretty decent at it, yeah.
That's actually something very interesting that I always think about a lot when I see which coaches go where. And I was talking to Roger from now Optic about that, because he kind of became the coach of some of the players that had a bit of a controversy in the old Optic lineup with the Americans and then the Danes there. And there were some problems with them maybe not being handled the correct way. And I think actually what he told me in an interview was they definitely need someone strong to actually put them in their place, or at least have the right way of approaching them. So you'd also as a coach have to like deal with the problematic players and relationships in there. And I know you've probably been doing that as an IGL as well, but like that would scare me, I think, away from that job.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very rewarding, or at least it didn't maybe like 6 months ago. I think ECS did a lot with that video, just showing, you know, how important coaches are. I thought that was a really cool piece that they released.
Yeah, go watch that.
I don't think the majors, like Valve themselves at the majors, do enough to appreciate the coaches and their effect on teams. Obviously, they stripped them of a lot of their ability to talk and stuff like that, but they also don't have like stickers and all that stuff, which isn't really important financially, right? Like I think the coaches, most of the big coaches probably get a good enough salary and maybe even get a piece of the sticker money from what I know. But obviously it's good to get respected amongst the community, right? Like they don't have that level of respect as they do in like traditional stick and ball games, you know, ball and stick games, however that saying goes.
I'd buy a Sonic sticker, I think, maybe. I probably would.
I'd definitely buy a Sonic sticker.
So, guys, if there's anything you want to ask this, I mean, Lucas, I don't know if you're on a call right now, or did you? You might as well have taken that. Or if you guys have any questions for Sean, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, I just thought it was funny actually. Thinking about Prof, who is not here today. He sat at the Adria A1 league or whatever behind LucasAM, the Croatian team. And he was just talking, I think he tweeted just how stressful it is to actually be a coach nowadays in CS, just because of all the limitations there are. And what you were talking about, Valve putting those limitations on the coaches. Do you think that it's not only about like maybe giving more sticker money or more respect, but actually giving them maybe also more responsibility, let's say, in the game?
I don't know if that would really help the community's perspective on coaches. I think, like I said, the coaches just aren't like frontal figures in the majors. Like they don't have stickers. Like that is how casual fans learn about players like that. Like there's not pieces made about coaches at the majors typically. Um, they're just kind of behind the teams, right? And then the casters will be like, oh, look how passionate Zeus is. He's giving them like a talk. Maybe let's see what Zeus has for an idea right now after this tack timeout, right? And that's the extent of what you know about coaches at a major. There's no, that's like, how is a casual fan going to tie themselves into, knowing what a coach is? Whereas when you watch traditional sports, I mean, there's so many pieces about using like the Patriots from the NFL, like Bill Belichick. Dude, like, I don't even really watch the NFL, and I can tell you a lot of stuff about Bill Belichick. I mean, like, he's such a big talking point when you watch NFL games. Him and Tom Brady together, like that duo. Whereas, like, where does that exist in CS? Like, when do casters really talk about that? Talk about coaches to that level?
I think it's common right now. I think they're getting some more.
They're definitely. Oh no, it's definitely gotten better. I agree, 100%. It's gotten way better in the last 6 months to a year.
So there was a question about the. There was also, and this is kind of maybe in tune with what you probably originally started this team on, Sean. There was also the rumor that you guys were going to play in tank tops if you made it to Poland. I think. Is that something you can confirm or?
I cannot confirm that. Honestly, I don't know where that rumor came from. I don't think we talked about that. But it would be really funny, despite the fact that it would probably be like rainy and cold in March. I mean, whenever I go to Katowice, it's pretty cold. Like I don't think tank tops. I don't know, man. I don't think the sun's gonna come out just because we're wearing tank tops.
-5 or 10, and people are standing 500 people in line, as far as I remember.
I don't know if the tank top thing is gonna work.
You wear your hoodie. That's cool. Anyway, guys, let's move along. Let's move along a bit. Speaking about coaches, we talked about YNK a couple of times on the show, actually, and we probably kind of deemed his lack of impact on MIBR. I felt like this when he joined the team, we did an interview with him where he said he wanted them to play with a certain style and swagger, right? I think this was actually the first time we saw it in Texas, and we're talking about the ECS finals here. This was something else from them that I haven't seen for a long while. That was very interesting to look at from my perspective. We can obviously talk about Astralis who won, but we do that every week. So yeah. I don't even know if we go there, obviously.
I think one of the big storylines as well is actually.
Yeah, there's also at least one very big storyline connected to Astralis from this last week.
Yeah.
Outside of them actually winning the tournament.
We'll get to that because I know Strike, you talked to them about the smoke thing. But before that, let's head into I think one of the more interesting teams to actually watch play at the tournament was obviously MIBR. Do you guys think that this is like the beginning of a new beginning for them, or?
I mean, the problem for me is that like we've already seen them do it once, which was like around Istanbul and like at the major as well, where I thought they were gonna improve and they were gonna actually be a stable, like an elite team, like a top 5 team, and then they fell off again and they exited 2 more tournaments like super early in Copenhagen and I'm blanking what the other Chicago. So at those 2 tournaments, then they just fell back down and so I'm still not entirely convinced that they can be as consistent just based on that. So that's kind of my worry, but you're right that like they probably looked like their best version in that, especially in that game that they actually won against the Astralis, but even in the final where they went like 14-16 and in double overtime, like of course there were some problems, so especially like some calling, and I think even Fallen touched on it that like sometimes there's a little bit too much ideas sometimes, like those Americans tend to like a much faster play style, so they just like to do some surprising stuff while Fallen is the more cautious. So I'm not entirely sure if that's what it was, but that kind of showed in that Inferno game where they basically like lost the potential for overtime at least when they pushed the smoke on middle against pistols, right? So that's kind of one of those things that were a little bit worrying, but at the same time they did look promising at least.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, did you have a chance to check out any of the matches in Texas?
No, yeah, I watched a lot of their matches in Texas. They looked really good. I thought they looked really good at the major. I don't know what happened at Blast when they went like 0-5 or whatever and lost that Cloud9 with, I think Valens was standing in when they lost to him. That was a little bit rough. But yeah, they're a very streaky team from what I can tell. And I think that's a lot to do with their players' style, right? When they formed the team, they had Fur, S2E, and Tarek as super aggressive riflers, right? Like, what kind of team is created with 3 super aggressive riflers? And Fallen has gotten significantly better since, like, I mean, at the major, I thought he was performing really well. I sat on the analyst desk. I think he's revitalized. And that's something Yanko wanted to do when he came into MIBR. I know he wanted to get Fallen really involved, really aggressive, like how he used to be, because he kind of lost that a little bit towards like the start of 2018, in my opinion. So you can tell Fallen's being way more proactive across the map, but they still have 3 aggressive riflers. So they compensated by making S2E like a support player, which he struggled with significantly at first, honestly. Like, but when you listen to them, so when I was listening to them at the major, S2E's communication is so underrated. I mean, he calms so much stuff for them that I literally can't even explain like how important it is to dictating like how a round is played. You know, like if as an in-game leader, like having someone like that on your team is just so important. And what I mean by that is like he has communication that's very directive. Like if you're taking long A on Dust 2, you know, and most people as T would be like, I'm flashing the corner. And they know like a guy is playing long, like on the wall. Well, when S2E would throw that flash, he doesn't say, I'm flashing corner, like, and that's it. He'll be like, flashing corner, he's blind. Or be like, I'm flashing, he's blind. And that basically almost forces you as a teammate to want to peek that, right? Like, that is a very interesting choice of words that he uses to basically control the way his players move across the map. When someone gets a kill, like when I was listening to them play, so they're playing Dust 2 against Mouse Sports, and that's what's like fresh in my mind when I was like watching them. Someone got a kill, and he instantly recognizes based on rotations, which is what I was talking about earlier. Like you call based on rotations. Someone got a kill. He's like, okay, that leaves 1 guy A, 2 guys B still. Let's hit A. Like that is very important information that he's saying that maybe not everyone realizes. You know, like everyone should realize that at the top level, but trust me, they don't realize that in the heat of the moment. And the fact that he's like providing that info, and it's no one else, it's not Fallen that was providing that info when I was listening. Like he provides very specific details throughout the round that ultimately like direct how the team plays. And maybe that's what Fallen was referring to, or whoever was referring to. I didn't hear what you said when there's a lot of voices, because yeah, there are a lot of voices in that team that are playing, because obviously Tarek called too, so I didn't really hear Tarek do that kind of stuff that much, but I know that S2E does that. And I think that's actually a great thing to have on a team. But also, I mean, I know from talking with Cold Zero that Cold Zero calls a lot. Like Cold Zero had that stint in this team where he was actually the in-game leader, and from talking with him, something that these Brazilian guys have done in the past is if they ever went to overtime, Cold Zero would always take over in-game leading. No matter what iteration of these teams, he said that he was in-game leading in every overtime. And maybe that led to why, you know, those Brazilian teams were so successful in those close games in the past, is because they had 2 different in-game leaders. Well, now they have like 4 different in-game leaders. You know, like everyone besides Fur has in-game led at some point on this team. So yeah, it creates a little bit of chaos. But I do think that their group of players is finally like hitting their stride. I think, yes, they have like these super aggressive players that all need to be making plays across the map, but I think S2E has like settled really well into his role. Tarek is kind of in like a weird limbo right now. I think he's kind of like settling into his role too. I mean, he obviously had that huge 1-on-4. It's like they have such skilled players, but they're just not in places that they're used to. And once they get used to the roles that they're in, which hopefully is like coming soon based on this event, they're going to be a really dangerous team. I think they're going to stay in the top 5 regardless. But whether they find that consistency, they could easily be like a top 2 team in the world, like contending with the Strauss at every event.
Yes, I'm just like, I wonder what the success really, what constitutes success for this project, because it's been online for almost 6 months now, and they haven't really done much except from these flashes of greatness. They won one event, the SoTac Masters thing, and then obviously the whole the iteration of the team and the coming in, the MIBR acquisition, and the live show they did in Brazil announcing the team. I'm just wondering how far they'll have to go before the management or at least they themselves will be satisfied with what they've achieved. Like, do they have to do better than this, or will they make a change before that, or is management just content with this?
I mean, it's not even up to just management. Like, if you look at players like, especially like Fallen and Cold, and for like the main trio, those guys are just used to winning, right? They've won something like 10 tournaments in their careers especially over the last 2-3 years. So for those guys, I feel like it's even more important than for the management. Like, for the management, if they keep like a consistent level, if they go do top fours at like pretty much every tournament they attend, I feel like it's not going to make that much of a difference. But for the players, I feel like the longer they go without winning any titles, the more pressure kind of mounts. And especially on players like that, especially on Coldzera, who kind of wanted to leave at one point because of that, because they just couldn't get those titles. So I feel like that's the main part, rather than the management.
So let's move on to what you were already talking about, Striker, because you talked to some of these players, the Nico tweet and the smoke thing. It became kind of a theme in your interviews, actually, even though I know that it wasn't taking to that well talking about it publicly, but you got some questions in there anyway. So obviously what happened was Nico tweeted out that he kind of theorized that there were some fiddlings with the NVIDIA settings, or at least video settings, and he later came out and said that what he actually wanted to was create attention to the problem that the smokes and client were different, or that there were some people using video settings to see through smokes. How serious would you say that the Astralis players took the quote-unquote accusations? Like, did they really think that he was after them, or?
I don't really think so. Like, the problem was that like Nico basically presented it as if it was a fact that they're using something shady. So that's kind of the problem, even though like he didn't necessarily say it was like NVIDIA settings or what exactly it was. He was just basically alluding to something that they're doing. So that's why initially I didn't even feel like it was like a very interesting tweet. I thought it was just going to be like some basic video settings, like really high video settings or whatever. I thought Nico's point was about like different video settings just within the game, not like anything external, like changing how smokes behaves, how Molotovs behave, because that's already a thing. Like the higher quality you go, the Molotovs, like you can actually see through the smoke from a Molotov, while in like lower settings or like certain settings you can't really. So that's what I thought he was alluding to at first, before like Taco kind of went in as well and explained it further before the conversation got started. So like initially I didn't even think it was that much of a big deal, but obviously like it became one. The community just took to it, and I feel like it definitely must have affected them. Perhaps not just because of Nico. I think they didn't really take that too seriously, but just based on the whole community just taking on that and bashing them with it, because like almost like every other comment I saw about every Astralis news basically throughout the tournament was about the smokes thing. So, and a lot of the time it was not nice. Like it was pretty aggressive. So I feel like that must have affected them, but they didn't let on. Like I talked to two of them. I talked to Glaive and Zipex, actually both of them that were like the main people who were accused, because those are the two that kind of get the most kills through a smoke and just play well around smokes. And I talked to both of them, and neither of them seemed like it was too much of a big deal. But at the same time, like if you look at how much they're joking about it and how much they're actually trying to make it look like it's not serious or anything, I feel like they're balancing a little bit too hard. Like I think they are being affected by it and just like trying not to let on.
Yeah, like they were. I think he was calling himself the smoke criminals. And
Yeah, exactly. But there's just been from him especially, but even from the others, like some every now and again you just see like some sort of a joke, and I just felt like those they were commentating a little bit, but I'm not entirely sure. Like from the interviews that I did, I literally just asked them one question about it, like if that affected them in any way, and they kind of deflected, and said like there's just nothing to it. Like we wouldn't do that. So it's like the only thing you can do, you can joke about it. So that's the only thing that I got from them pretty much. So not too much, but just generally, I feel like it must affect everybody for like all of a sudden to so many people just accusing you of doing something shady and just jumping on that bandwagon. Like that must affect anybody, I think.
I mean, you have to also look at like what this says about the pull that someone like Nico has in the community and what it means when he does that. Like, we've talked about this before, the Twitter access, right? The ease of communication channels to maybe think a little bit too fast and type a little too fast. We talked about it with the Freakazoid thing, and when his brother went to United, or at least was rumored there. Like, Sean, what's your take on that? From my perspective, a kind of maybe a thoughtless tweet from Nico's side, or it definitely was.
Yeah, dude, the pros definitely got them Twitter fingers. They definitely have the Twitter fingers. But I think Nico probably knows, as a pro, obviously. I saw it was on the front page of Reddit. Most people realize this, but you see people on radar before the smoke actually dissipates. And I think Strauss is just really, really good, particularly Glaive and Zipix, like you said. They're really, really good at lining up that red dot and spraying someone through a smoke. And obviously you think you're dying through a smoke because you obviously can't see that person. And they're good at like transitioning their player. So like they're moving, but then they still like line up that red dot and get you through the smoke. And they're also really good at not knowing where you're going to be behind the smoke, but say like it's on Inferno, right? And Glaive does this a lot where he'll rotate to mid from B and like arch side mid will be smoked off. He'll go up to that smoke and he knows like 3 spots that T is like standing in, and he's going to spray those 3 spots like super quick with about 12 bullets. And he's just going to like feel out where you are. And if you shoot back, he's moving enough where he's going to stop his player in a different spot. You're going to be spraying the old spot he was, and then he's just going to kill you through the smoke. But he's only able to do that from, you know, a lot of research and understanding like the 3 spots players are going to stand in. And if he mollies out or, you know, nades a certain spot, he's going to filter you into the other 2. So then he has like a 50-50 shot of if you're in bracket, you're going to be in these 2 spots. Because any other spot, you're very vulnerable to lane peaks and, you know, like pop flashes mid. So it's like there's very common spots that pros stand in. And Strauss is just really good at abusing those. That's why they do all these nade setups, right? Like it only makes sense that they're getting these kills through the smokes because they did a lot of research in understanding the common spots people stand in. And that's where they're getting the kills through the smokes, the common spots people stand in. I mean, that's my 2 cents on it, at least.
But I guess Nico knows this, right? So my question there is, why would you even start thinking about incriminating these people or alluding to the fact that he's played them 1,000 times, you know, and he probably himself know a lot of the spots himself. So yeah. My question is, I don't know if you can answer that because obviously maybe you have a little bit more of a thought process before blurting out stuff on social media, Sean. But if you can run me through like what makes a player do that?
I don't know. I mean, that Zipix round, I agree on the Mirage one where he spams the guy through the jungle. That's, I think, what initiated Nico to do it, right? Like that 1 versus 1.
Yeah.
That was definitely a weird round, but apparently you can see the guy's shadow like coming through the smoke. But yeah, from this, you know, the Go TV, obviously Sliggy, yeah, that's his name. Sliggy obviously uses all high settings for the stream quality, right? So what you see on that stream is very, very different than, you know, what Glaive or Zipix is seeing in game. Zipix was the guy in the 1v1. So what he sees in that 1v1, I'm sure he had some kind of pixel that he saw. And I think he's also angled on the right side of default. I don't remember his specific location.
Yeah, he was right side.
Yeah, he was right side default, right? So he couldn't have gotten seen from spawn. He's like eliminated, you know, most of the situations he can die from. Obviously, he could have died from flank, but I'm pretty sure he had a really good idea that the guy wouldn't be flanking him. So like he's just angled off watching, you know, the one area he can die from. And it seems to most people like he's in the middle of the open, but if a guy came from CT, by the time he was visible, that CT would have made noise 100% in that scenario. So he's just using his player model, and then he just happened to probably see, you know, something through the smoke.
I think it was his feet. He said it was the feet, right?
I think the problem kind of was that, like, generally, if you look at that smoke, like he wasn't even looking like too much towards the edge or anything to kind of spot like somebody coming out of it, but he was kind of aiming a little bit towards the middle, right? And the problem was that, like, because I think it was because of those stairs that he could actually see something underneath, or like at least a shadow or anything, and that's basically what happened, right? So I think that's the biggest problem, that like from how the smoke was positioned, like it felt like there was no way he could have seen anything through it. But like underneath, because of those stairs or like the position that it was in, I think that was the biggest problem. But yeah, like Sean says, it's just based on the stream looking very different. But that happens all the time. Like you can see, even as like when you're playing and like your teammates tell you, oh, there's a guy in that smoke. Like obviously that's not supposed to happen. You should not like know something that you can't see or whatever. But like that's how the game works at this point. And I feel like, yes, Nikos did start it, but I think he didn't quite realize how serious that accusation was. I don't think he realized that like those settings would get taken so badly. Like anything that you can basically do without an external program, aside from like NVIDIA, whatever it's called. So I feel like people are being a little bit too harsh towards Nico as well, just because I don't think, based on how he worded it, based on how he didn't really say what it was exactly, just like some sort of settings, that I don't think he himself realized how bad it was, what he was saying.
Yeah, I don't think Nico realized like the implications of his tweet when he sent it out. Like I don't think he had malicious intent at all. You know, like he wasn't saying that Ashals is cheating, blah blah blah, but he didn't think there'd be like a massive witch hunt like in the next like 24 hours.
I mean, if he did, it would have been a fucking like next level play to get rid of Astralis basically long term. Like the only way you can defeat Astralis is just starting a witch hunt on them and they just break down from inside.
I remember waking up that morning looking at the whole thing on Twitter and also your questions to Sipnix about it, or was it Glaive? I don't remember. And like, part of me wants to believe this is true, that maybe they're doing something fishy, and now comes the whole drama and we're gonna figure it out, and they'll finally be taken down, and the end of the year is gonna be like totally fucked up, and everything is gonna be very interesting from our point of view anyway. And then obviously didn't amount to much, right?
Yeah, I mean, just seriously though, like the smoke stuff. Sorry, Lucas. The smoke stuff is like fucking 5% of what they do. Like if you look at everything else around their game, they're that 5% better than everybody else, and basically everything, or like 10% even at times. So like the smoke stuff is just so little out of everything that they do better, that like it's just ridiculous to even accuse them of like them having all the success because of it, even if it was true. So that's just my take.
Lucas, you're saying? Here? Lucas, can you hear?
We can't hear you, man.
Oh, it's internet issues, I think.
We can see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Oh,
nope, nothing.
We'll go back to him. Sean, there was a question from Pain445. He asks, just curious, what do you think would happen in NA if this were to happen? Like, how long would drama last, do you think? Like, say there was 2 NA players in an NA league?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's my favorite shit ever, though, when FPL players get accused of, like, stream silence. Do you see the whole PTR drama? Like, man, NA players blow up all that stuff. It's so
all
funny.
About, like, ghosting or something? Or, like...
Yeah, which he actually found out, like, he wasn't stream sniping, but... The witch hunt was on once someone called him out on stream sniping. Like all of the streamers were like in on it. That's the thing, is like the streamers in NA would blow it up, like because NA has way more like not popular streamers, because I think when popular EU players stream they get more viewers, but they have more consistent streamers in NA, which means they have like stronger followings that are always there. I think it would just blow up like out of control for like a week straight. But that's all. I mean, like
it's just people jumping on bandwagons, though. That's the problem. Like, you see something get started, and a few people start up, and then it just like it's on. So people just need to, obviously, like you can't affect how the whole community's mentality works. But like people should just, I don't know, calm down a little bit and actually think about something before they make their own opinion. Well, basically, more like until they follow somebody else's opinion.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
yeah. There you go.
Yeah, so basically what I wanted to say also is I think that it was unfortunate that Nico said that, mostly because we reached the point where the community just kind of wants Astralis to fail and fall, and they just want something to happen. People get bored. So this is something Peter tweeted the other day when he was talking about, I can't remember, I think it was an American caster was saying like, oh, I hope somebody else gets an MVP award and not Device. And Peter was like, yeah, that has happened throughout sports history, and it's called, what was it, MVP fatigue or something, and it's when people just are tired of the same team or the same person being dominant, and so people just kind of jump on something for no other reason than just because they're tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. And I think it was just kind of unfortunate that Nico put that out at a moment where people are kind of maybe tired of Astralis winning all the time because it kind of takes away from the excitement or whatever you want to call it. Which, I mean, I think other people that don't just watch it for the excitement, like you, for example, Striker, and you're talking about like, oh yeah, they do everything 5% better than everybody else, and it's because you just want to see like the best team doing the best thing,
right? And
you want to see like the cutting edge, you know, kind of play that Astralis can bring out every time. But other people, they just want to be like, oh, look at this rivalry, or this team won, this is exciting. Sure. And so when this happens, even just like a tiny little comment, like, you know, what Nico said can like snowball out of control the way it did.
All right,
yeah,
so
I agree 100%.
Let's move along, guys. Let's move along. Talking a little bit about the minor qualifiers, the closed ones coming up. Obviously, we talked a little bit with you about it, Sean. You guys are there. So if we just start with the North American one, it's 6 slots, right? And out of 16 teams, and it's taking place, I think, is it next week?
No, it's like December 12th or something like that.
Yeah. So like, let's start out, because a lot of questions in the chat were about, actually, I know we talked a little bit about it before, but your chances there, how do you figure they are? Because you have 6 spots of 16 teams, and I think you're kind of in a good place for that, right? It could definitely happen.
I don't know. I think we're like the only team not salaried in this whole thing. I think like this is like a different beast. Like these teams, yeah. So Ghost can't use Steel, which is obviously a big like negative when it comes to their team play. And then Soul Patrol can't use Swag, so that also puts them at a disadvantage. I don't know. I think there's like we beat Mythic in Team 1 in MDL. I don't even know what lineups we were using at that point. I wasn't even at the Team 1 game, so I don't even remember. But like E United, NRG, and like Luminosity and Rogue, those are really good teams that have so much structure and layers to them across so many different maps. I don't know. Is this like best of 1s or best of 3s? Like what's the format? I don't even know.
I think it's best of 3 is double limb, isn't it?
It's double limb, yeah. It's the full Monty.
It should be across the board. Best of 3 is double limb for these close qualifiers.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It is in the European one. So
that's probably rough for you, Sean, huh?
You didn't even check it?
No, I have not checked it yet. I have not checked it. So I don't know. I think we could definitely beat like 5 or 6 of these teams for sure. But whether we could get like top 6, we might be on like the fence of something like that. And it really depends on who we play and like when we play them, the maps we get them on. Like I don't know. I can't say like if our matchups right like in a double limb bracket against NRG and then E United in the lower bracket, I'd be like, I don't think we're making it, guys. Like, but it just depends. I don't know. It kind of depends on who you play, right? But I think to answer your question, like who's going to get out, I think NRG, E United, probably Rogue are for sure teams going to get out. I would imagine Luminosity is going to get out too. So like that makes 4 teams definitely going to get out. A double elimination bracket, that's a little bit interesting because that means, you know, depending on how the brackets play out, those teams could potentially knock each other out. Since
I mean, I think okay, you guys have 6 teams going through, right? Yeah, that's true. Never mind.
So it's definitely possible, that some of those teams end up knocking each other out. It's unlikely because they should have good seeding, especially given how they're playing in EPL.
That's what I was about to mention. But like obviously you have like that extra round, whatever it is. Yeah, this is an extra round that you play in the lower bracket. It should be.
Yeah.
I think that should be how it works. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it could only be like at the end of the lower bracket where one of those 4 teams that you mentioned, or was it 3? I'm not sure. That you mentioned could meet each other, because they're going to be like obviously like as far from each other as possible. Because I saw that we just had those EU minor close qualifiers matchups, and you can see like Mousesports, Ends, Optic, and North, who are probably the 4 biggest favorites of that close qualifier, being basically like where they would meet in a semifinals, right? Like as far from each other as possible. So that means in the lower bracket they would only meet in the 3rd round. So that's how I imagine how it's going to work in the Americas as well. So it's probably unlikely.
So the brackets. I didn't know that the bracket was out for Europe. Okay.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Literally just today, like I don't know,
you kind
3 hours ago.
Took a head start on that striker. Let's take a look at it on my screen.
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, so
probably can't see it much, but you can.
It's like Vitality or Virtus Pro.
Yeah.
In that first matchup, and then they're gonna probably play Mousesports right after that.
Yeah, that's kind of harsh, right?
That's a yikes. And then that means that the brackets probably flip at the bottom, right? So they would be playing someone from like the lower portion of the bracket.
No, not in the first round. It would be later. That's the thing. Like in the first round, we literally have loser of Mousesports XCOM plays loser of Virtus Pro Vitality, etc.
Okay. And
so that's why I'm saying like they should not meet anybody. Like the best teams, the 4 best teams shouldn't meet in the Europe minor qualifier at all. And in the NA, I think only in the 3rd round of the lower bracket. I don't want to lie. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's what it is.
So if the bracket flips then after that match, would hypothetically, if XCOM and Virtus Pro played in the lower bracket, right? Virtus Pro hypothetically wins that, then they would play someone from the bottom. So like if Kingwin lost to Space Soldiers and then Kingwin beat Sprout, would they play Kingwin? Is that how that would work? So like Virtus Pro play Kingwin in that 2nd round?
Wouldn't be too bad.
Like that is like
I'm
that's
just trying
brutal.
to remember when it flips. But I mean, it's like when you look at the whole Europe minor, like there's no easy way out. Honestly.
Yeah, it's extreme.
Like it's just like wherever you go,
dude.
you're gonna meet somebody good. Like look at just like North. Like I was saying, like North Optic and Mousesports, I think we can agree are like the best teams out of that pool. But then you have like
this LDLC,
like half
I
the
think
tier.
it's like
Ends
like half the tier
LDLC
below
like
that. Huh?
Oh my god, there's so many good teams here. Like North.
Yeah.
I think Space Soldiers is really good. Kingwin has shown that they have like a very deep map pool. Heroics obviously really good.
Yep.
I don't know if Fractures can come out of this, but they're still a pretty good team. Optic, Ents, like LDLC, and like the teams I'm skipping could easily upset any of these teams. Like easily. I don't think the teams I'm skipping will probably advance out, but they could definitely ruin someone's minor, without a doubt.
Yeah, we saw like how an IP got eliminated really early, and they even lost to like some lower tier Swedish team or something at that point. So this is kind of similar. Like I feel like any of these teams could be like probably not Mousesports. Like Mousesports, I feel like are like so far ahead of that bunch, just generally that I don't think anybody will like. It will be easy to upset them even online, especially on a best of 3. But like anybody else, I feel like is not safe. Like potentially North as well, I'm not sure.
They actually took a little bit of a head start on the proposed Nordic minor, because look at this. These 4 teams here, right? So you have Uptick and then Bialy's mix, and then Fraxter's Heroic in 2 games, and then they'll meet each other, and then 2 teams will go to the lower bracket for that. So already there, they're kind of weeding out the Danish teams, right? And the same with Sprout and North in the bottom one. But yeah, doing what they can to limit our march forward for that world domination. I think it's probably pretty wise.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder how it was when I was writing that up. I was just wondering how it was actually seeded, but it's probably based on some sort of their ranking. Yeah, because it's not invited teams versus like qualified teams even. Because you have Kingwin and Space Soldiers are both invited teams, and they're playing each other in the first round. So
They
it's
could've
not
just
even that.
handpicked it, maybe.
Yeah,
They just
potentially.
made
I'm
that.
not sure. But I mean, they also have their own ranking as well, and that's like slightly different to ours. So who knows? Probably based on that.
So how many teams get out of this? 6?
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, so
They
they
have
have 8
8.
spots.
So
Yeah.
2 come out of that upper bracket, and then 6 will come out the lower. So they just got to get to the.
No, it's 4 and 4.
What?
It's 4 and 4. Like you have
Yeah,
the
you have
second round of winner bracket winners go through, and second round of lower bracket,
Oh, really? So
which is both 4 matches. Yeah.
it cut the upper bracket just stops once 4 teams are there in
Yeah.
the semis.
Yeah, exactly. Because like then 4 teams fall down in that second round of the lower bracket, and 4 teams get eliminated before that in the first round of the lower bracket. So
Okay.
that's why.
So, John, you were touching on it a little bit. What do you think about Vitality's chances here? I think you thought they were underdogs. Was I hearing correctly, or? you-
Not against Virtus Pro. I think.
But like for the
honestly,
whole, for going through, how do you see the chances being like?
let's see. So I don't think they can't get to. I don't think they can get to that like top 4 in the upper bracket. Like I don't think that they can beat Mouse Sports.
Yeah, they would have to be Mouse, which is.
I even
like,
think the Virtus Pro series is like a little bit difficult, but I think they like based on what I've seen out of them, but they should be able to win that. The Mouse Sports game though seems like some insurmountable task. Like I don't think any of these teams can beat Mouse Sports in a best of 3. Like they're just too good. So then that would put them in the lower bracket against someone. I don't know. Would they play like? Would they be in the lower bracket against like? See, that's the weird thing. Is like it would flip at that point, and then they would be in the lower bracket against what, like Space Soldiers or North potentially. Like I
Yeah,
think they're underdogs
potentially.
in that matchup. They're definitely underdogs in that matchup. But if the bracket flips and they're playing the loser of say like Optic and Heroic, maybe they could steal that. I don't know. Like that. I think they're underdogs in either of those matchups based on
Yeah,
what
it flips in the
what I've
second
seen.
round. I just made sure that that's true. Oh yeah,
So it's like-
it should flip in the second.
The question is whether you think Vitality can beat Virtus Pro. They probably lose to Mouse Sports. So like if you think they can beat Mouse Sports, then they're just going to advance. But can they beat Virtus Pro? And then at that point, can they beat Heroic, Optic, Space Soldiers, or North? Because that's going to have to be the route, right? Like and then they're in. If they do that, they're in.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
they have to be one of them. Yeah.
And then they're at the minor. That's just the crazy thing about this. Isn't even the
Yeah,
minor
then they're
we're looking at, right?
That's a minor, dude. Oh my god.
I just realized.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is a part where, for the EU close qualifiers, I think this is the part where it makes sense, the new change of having the minor being a part of the whole thing and being in Poland and having that closer connection to the actual major. Because now EU is so stacked that the teams you're going to see are like teams of a caliber that you'd see in at least the main qualifier before, right? So it kind of makes sense in that regard. Maybe not so much for an A, not to...
Yeah, actually, and I think that's one of the kind of like, I don't know if I'd call it like underrated, but like not talked about enough stories of 2018 is just how stacked I think EU has become compared to other regions. Like there was always a little bit like, oh, EU is better, but nowadays you look at like the tier 2, tier 3 European teams, and it's actually teams that can upset in open qualifiers, closed qualifiers, and so it's like, I think even like the better European teams are probably, I'm not going to say scared, but there's always that moment where you can just get upset by a team that maybe last year or something like that you couldn't get upset by. And if we look at, I think it was the other day I retweeted somebody's tweet, which was just, oh, here are some of the teams in like the 4th open qualifier
Yeah.
of Europe. And it was like, oh, this could be a minor anywhere else, like no problem.
I mean, that's like taking it a little bit too far, because like I saw that exact tweet. I was like thinking, like, okay, let's stop with the bandwagon. Let's not make EU like this fucking insane region. Like, of course, there's a higher number of like those competitive teams, but like not in the 4th year qualifier. There was like maybe four teams that should have gone to like the close qualifier at best, right? Not entirely to the minor. So like,
Yeah, but I mean,
it's
if you look
taken
at
a
like
little
the
bit too far. But like
Some of those
you-
teams could have been in the NA minor, and like not even going to talk about like CIS or Asia.
Well, yeah, probably.
What do you feel about that, Sean? I know you said to us, I think in once the last year, that you love playing EU teams. What's your look on what Lucas just said about the EU stack and the storyline there?
So yeah, I love playing against the top European teams, but like when I'm at like boot camp, we play very well against the top European teams, like the top 10 teams. But when you're playing a team like Windigo in scrims on like Cash, holy shit, dude! Like those guys are insane. Actually, like those guys are really good, and they're very unpredictable. Like that's what makes them such like contenders to like upset and ruin a team like Ensa's chance. You know, like those teams don't really exist in North America. Like I don't know, like when we go to Europe though and we boot camp, like before Vega Squadron got known, we would scrim against those guys, and you know, like we would be dominating everyone back in the day, like in these scrims, like boot camps in Europe. So like this is why we obviously had like big egos back then coming into majors. But we would play against a team like Vega Squadron, and they would like edge us out in like a 16-14 by like jumping through smokes and like taking all these one-on-one duels and like just fucking nonsense, it felt like. But they're just so good at it. They're so good at that style. And that's what makes them such like live dogs in these brackets. Like they could definitely ruin a top tier chance. And that's what happened in NIP. Like remember that Cash game, like that 16-2? Well, that was against Vega, right? That was against Vega.
Yeah.
Like those teams can do that to you, and that's not really on NIP. Like it's just when you practice and you play these other teams that play, you know, fundamentally sound Counter-Strike, you're not used to playing that style. Like you're playing their game at that point. Like you can't force them to play tactical CS. Like they're not going to play it. Like they're going to play their style, and they're very good at it. So like
sounds like something that really rustles you.
Yeah,
something
no,
that gets to you.
It's difficult. Like it really doesn't get to me because you don't really run into those teams very much at tournaments. But when it comes to brackets like this online, you know, like that XCOM team, is that the team with that like 14-year-old? So like
No, I don't think so. Unless
who's on this team? Who's on this
that's
XCOM
like
team?
Goofy, Stomp, Mono.
Oscarish,
Yeah, Oscar.
Get QR.
Oh, okay, so no, that's not the team I'm thinking of. But yeah, I was like watching one of these teams play. I'm trying to like. Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember who
this
could
is
have been.
not the team. How old is Frozen?
16 now. I
Is it
think.
Yeah.
Is it? Does he have
He's
an O?
super.
Or what's?
That really good young kid.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's Frozen.
Oh,
Like
that's
I was
the one.
watching his team play an event, and like, holy shit, dude, that kid is really good, and he takes aim duels that most really good players in the top scene like wouldn't take because he hasn't been burned enough like in top events, and like randomly having confidence like that to take those aim duels when you're capable of winning them is something that can like definitely win you best of ones like against top teams. Obviously, you're gonna lose most of them, but you know, like 1 in 4 you can win. So
Just by the way, right? Like just to touch back on like how strong the European region is. Like let's say the major is now 24 teams, right? Like whatever, however you look at it, like sure it's like a qualifier, like the first part anyway, even though it's not called it anymore. But let's say the top 24 teams should be at the major, right? And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 24 teams in that Europe minor closed qualifier. So that's like that just speaks to how strong that closed qualifier is. Like there technically should be 7 teams at the major out of those whatever. What did I say? 6 teams? 2, 4, 6,
Sweet.
7 teams at the major.
if you get out of the minor, like if you get out of these closed qualifiers, then what happens? You play in a minor with only teams in your region again?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you're minor, NA minor.
And those are all played in Poland this time, right?
Yeah. It doesn't
like
like the system actually doesn't change. It's just like they actually moved it to one location.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. And then you have like the third place teams because of those. That's actually one more thing, where you have the third place teams play each other, like from every NA minor, from every minor. And that's for like the extra 2 spots at the major.
Sean, weren't you an analyst at the major, man? How can you not know this?
I mean, the E-League one that I did, the minors actually weren't.
No, well,
in,
they were
like,
the way that they had been the whole time.
No, we played our minor in like Toronto or something. We were in Canada for the Boston Major, so it definitely wasn't the same.
No, I
don't
meant
think
like from like the earlier years. I mean, like it's been working the same until that major actually.
Yeah.
Like it was only at the Faces major where it changed a little bit. Like that they actually moved it to one location.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Moving along. Next, every show we have a viewer question that we take in, and a prize is actually on display for that. Whoever comes up in our tweet with the best one gets a free poster of choice from our gallery that we'll ship to you if possible. And there were actually a lot of good ones this time. I think we had it kind of helped having you on there, Sean. This picture that I found out we use every time we publish news about you, apparently. It's like each player, at least the top tier ones, has like one photo that we always use. And this apparently is yours. I don't know. I guess this is from EPL too.
Well, there's that one, and there's the other one with like
the other one where he does like the peace.
The peace sign.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually used that one for the post that said.
I've used it like twice as well.
So
I mean,
anyway,
isn't it like your latest photo? Like, oh well, maybe not the latest because of like the analyst gigs, but like one of your.
You guys
latest,
just have like a
photos
massive folder. You guys have like a massive folder, and you just like search through it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the same way anyone else would do it.
Yeah, same way you would do it basically.
You could go in gallery and just type in your name and.
You guys just use your own gallery?
Yeah.
Of course.
Like you just go there, and you just type in.
I mean, of course, like we have quite a lot of photos, man.
Here we go.
I thought you guys had like a back end or something.
No,
you guys
nothing like that.
Use the gallery function like
we're just using
normal
what's on the
plebs.
site.
It's literally the same image ID. Like you just paste this into like the editor thing.
The editor, yeah.
Oh,
damn.
The more you know, right? So anyway, the question this time was actually from a reporter called Ryan at RBM. You guys probably know Rush B Media. He does a podcast on there and employs several other writers at the site. So I think this one was pretty good because of the way you came into the scene, Sean, but also how it maybe used to be when teams were created. So his question is, the formation of teams used to be focused on finding friends to team up with and then finding the organization to play under. As more money comes into the scene, orgs have sought to have more control over the formation of rosters, like North or G2, obviously. Is this good or bad for Counter-Strike? What do you guys think?
I mean, if I were making a team, it's not about having friends because it's just having people you can tolerate. Like that is the fundamental thing, right? If you can tolerate that person for, dude, like, I mean, what? It has to be like around 60 hours a week. Like, can you tolerate someone for 60 hours a week? That's it. Because you won't want to be like close friends and hang out with them after working with them for 60 hours a week. You know, like, is that person willing to put in the time, like, to improve, and do they communicate well? Like, but I mean, realistically, like, how many people? I mean, I guess some people do hang out with people from their work. I agree, but like, how much do you hang out with people from your work, like outside of work, if you literally come in contact with them as much as someone that's in a professional CS team? Like, you pretty much, like, if you're a normal player on a team, you don't really work much, like, without your teammates, right? Like, you're always around them, I guess, outside of like pugs and like FPL and stuff like that, but you're in contact with those people for a large percentage of your week. You don't want to hang out with them and be friends with them like afterwards. Like, that's not something that typically happens. I guess, like, when you're living like in a like close team quarters, you'll end up like getting like lunch and stuff like that, but most people want to do their own thing. They want to have their own lives. So like, I think teams built on friendships and stuff like that, just, they're kind of destined to fail the way that Counter-Strike has evolved, because it didn't used to be like this. Like, it didn't used to be so serious, and the amount of time you'd put in, like, the strategic level of CS has evolved, and with that comes a lot of criticism, right? Like, in order to get to that evolved state of CS where you have high teamwork, you have good strategies, you're gonna have to get critiqued, and you're gonna have to respond to that accordingly. So like, you're gonna have to be able to tolerate that person to be able to accept that criticism. But if you're friends with someone on like a super close level, you're not going to want to give that criticism as much. You're not going to want to evolve because, I mean, you're too busy trying to be friends with them, right? Like, so I think like it's a very fine line. I think if you're only focused on friendships, you're not going to progress as well as like a team like Astralis. But with that being said, like the players on Astralis like each other. They like hanging out with each other. So you have to be able to like kind of like the players on your team. You know, like you can't hate them. Like I always go back to this example at DreamHack Marseille when I was doing analyst desk, right? And at that event, like that was before Astralis went on their run. I literally said that they were going to go on this run. Like you can go back and watch the VODs. I was watching their online games. I could tell how prepared this team was. And then while I was doing analyst gig, my wife happened to be at that event. She saw them in the pool, like hanging out in the pool of the hotel with a laptop, all like laughing and splashing and all that shit, like having fun. But they were watching the games together and like analyzing them while having a good time. Like I've never seen a team do that. Like in my career, like that's so rare that a team has like that kind of friendship but can also put in the time, which is why they're so good. You know, like I don't know. I just don't think you can be super close friends though. Like I think you have to have like a business relationship while also maintaining like close ties, I guess. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I mean, there's definitely some correlation in Astralis, just because like you're obviously not going to spend like the extra time with people that you don't really like. Like sure, you're probably going to tolerate like some amount of time, but like you probably won't put in the extra work like to work with, especially if it's like with somebody like you were saying, like watching demos together and stuff like that, which is kind of important if you want to take that next step, but to watch it together and to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page about stuff. So like there has to be some sort of correlation. I'm not entirely sure how much, but there has to be some, like for them to at least be willing to put in the time to work with everybody else. So yeah.
I can't stop thinking about what one of my friends actually said to me, Sean, because what you said about being able to tolerate each other, kind of, the same could be said about marriage, actually, if I may. Like, obviously, you want to be in love with someone that you marry, but it's mostly being able to tolerate being with someone for like hours on end, vacations for like weeks on end. It's even more important than like being madly in love with each other. You can probably you can tolerate each other for a while, huh? I don't know. I guess it goes for me. I don't want to put you on the out on the stand here, Sean, but you can see probably see the.
I mean, you're probably talking to the wrong person, man. Like at least from the outside looking in, it feels like you two are like together forever, man.
Yeah, I think we more than tolerate each other. I think so. It's. I mean, but yeah, like you definitely not want someone that you can't tolerate. Like that would never. That would be bad. That would definitely be a recipe for disaster right there.
I'm just saying it might be a quality to look for. I mean.
I mean, I think this question is more about like just about the power from players to the organization. And I mean, to be fair, like those teams that he actually mentioned, North and G2, are like the only two that I can think of right now that probably have significant power over the roster. Like in Astralis, you have Zonic making the roster calls if necessary. Obviously, that really hasn't happened for a while, so he didn't really have that much responsibility on there. But like just in general, like very very few teams or very few organizations have power over the roster that can just go to the team and say, okay, this guy's out right now, let's find somebody else. Like I don't see too many teams doing that. At least as far as I know, I don't think that really happens very much.
I mean, also,
so, yeah.
I think it's also important to note, like, I think competition breeds improvement, right? So like that's why in like open markets things are constantly evolving and things are changing. But if you're close friends with everyone, you know that no one's getting cut from that team, right? Like, like you know that you don't have that inherent drive to constantly keep progressing because you feel like you're secure, like you feel comfortable, you get complacent, and people get complacent. Like that's just something that happens, like due to human nature, right? Like you're not going to work as hard if you're just comfortable. So I think that's another good reason why you don't want to be like super close to your teammates that I didn't mention before.
Like, don't you think it would actually be better if then, following that logic, Sean, that orgs or managers just had the final word, like that you eradicate any sort of player decision making and who actually is on the roster? Would that make a professional relationship more? I mean, like, wouldn't that make it more? Wouldn't it happen more often? Then?
So that's like a slippery slope, because yes, I want to say yes to that, but I also think it's very important that the orgs, if they go that route, hire competent people to do that, right? Like, if I were the GM of a team, I would constantly be scouting players, right? But what org has the eyes to be able to do that? Like, maybe Tommy could do that for like MIBR, but and maybe Zeus could do that for Liquid, because he's kind of like a GM coach. But like, who's gonna do that, right? Like, not many orgs have people with, I guess, Ave. Who else is on North other than Ave? There's someone.
Wimp,
that's who it is. So I think he could be capable of doing it.
I think Zonic as well.
Yeah,
I just generally, like, if you look at coaches, they're all probably going to be able to do it. Like, at least they have the quality to kind of find talent.
But that's the thing, is coaches can't do that, because they're full-time coaching. Like, they need to have like a GM that's doing stuff like that, or like a talent scout. Otherwise, how can the org control the roster if they don't have any idea what makes a successful team, a successful player? Like, it's like, I think, like North and Astralis have like a pretty good setup, like, to do stuff like that. Like, but most teams don't.
Well, but
so
that's the
it's
thing.
a slippery slope for me to say yes.
But I think that just comes with the growth, right? I mean, as the infrastructure gets bigger, you get teams like you mentioned, Astralis and North. They both have pretty big infrastructures compared to most of the teams playing today. I think it's just kind of the direction in which we're going, and it's just a matter of time before these changes start to happen, where you start getting that figure of, the GM and the coach and blah, 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 and they're separated, but they're all working together, and they all kind of understand the goals and the needs and whatnot, and then they're eventually going to be the ones who say, okay, this is what we need, that's what we don't need, this is what we're changing, and so on and so forth. And I think it's more just a matter of time than whether should it happen or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just also, like, it's at this point, it's basically just like the coaches, as you were talking about, like, the people who actually have the quality to do the talent, like, scouting are the coaches at this point. Like, there's not that many people in, like, the higher ups of organizations that actually understand how CS works, like, on a very high level, obviously. So, like, at this point, it's only coaches who can do it, but at the same time, coaches don't really have the same power as the organization. Usually, at this point, even from, like, players' perspective, I don't think many of them, like, have the kind of respect for their coach to like, trust them to have, like, absolute power over the roster. So it's also going to take some evolution on the players' side, like, to kind of start trusting their coach a little bit more and get used to that power being held over them. So that's, like, it's probably a long way away, but that's where we're headed.
I think the solution is coach stickers, right, Sean?
Right. But I do think that's where it's heading. But also, you have to remember that it's like using MIBR as like an example, right? Like, how that team was formed. Think about the amount of money that was poured into that team to buy out those Cloud9 players, fresh off a major, fresh off of, I don't know when their contracts were signed, to be honest, but we know, like, relative, based on what the community knows, like, the cost of those buyouts. And then you think about, like, the activation they did where they had Moses out in Brazil, like, announcing the team, like, a lot of money went into making that team. They pick up Yanko. I mean, I'm sure that they have to pay Yanko well. So you have to realize that orgs want to do that because of the brands of those players. Did they have the money to mold, like, new players, like, maybe from, like, young up and coming talents? Yeah, they definitely have the money to pull that off and, like, get coaches and stuff like that. But also, brands matter a lot, like, as far as, sponsorships and deliverables and this and that, and, like, so I mean, like, there's a lot of factors at play other than just finding, like, the best young up and coming talent with 500 Twitter followers, and like there's a lot of factors at play here that the orgs also are concerned about, like, and that's why, players can't control the rosters 100% of the time, and orgs can't control the roster 100% of the times. Like, there's a lot of things that go into this. So
I think an interesting example of what you're talking about there is actually the Fragsters team, who are now looking at other options, because they were actually kind of a mix between those two things. They're obviously very good friends, or at least they have some close acquaintances with each other that work, and they like each other socially. It's pretty obvious, and some of them are even brothers. So I guess that makes sense. And they also have this organization that, even though it was small and maybe didn't have many resources, it was actually extremely professional in the sense that they did like try and emulate some of the bigger teams with some big infrastructures there. So, and I think it's actually possible to do both. So be an organization that's very professional and has big infrastructure, but kind of bets on a horse that is players who are up and coming and do it well. Obviously, they were kind of a good example of that. And what's funny is that the players actually, it seems, chose not to go with the org anymore. Kind of cut ties with whomever, with Fragsters, and it's going to be interesting to see what then happens with a team that's brought up this way, very professionally, and it seems very thoughtfully, and they'll probably go to some big organization that needs a team right now, and we'll see whether they can still perform like they did, because they kind of upset everyone by that.
Well, I think it also comes down to not so much. I mean, the thing with MIBR was like, okay, we're making a whole new roster, and then we're gonna get 5 guys that are already established or whatever. But say you're a team that has 4 players, you might say, okay, let's go find that young talent, mold him into what we want, and then we'll give him the platform for him to become the next star guy with 100,000 followers, and he's gonna be loyal to us for bringing him on since he was young, and maybe he'll become like a franchise player kind of thing.
Right. So, thanks Ryan at Rushby Media for the question. We'll get in touch with you for your poster there. I see he was in the chat actually being pretty happy about his question being picked up. Let's move along, guys. Let's move along. So, DreamHack Winter is coming back. You guys have a chance to take a look at the teams here, and who do you think is going to take it this time? It's obviously not the biggest event this time. Not really. Let's take a look at the teams. It
hasn't been for a while now, but
yeah, sure. Some teams are the same that we looked at for the close qualifier. Ensa there, LDLC, Optic, and then Bravado. Who you, Lucas, actually are looking into right now, researching a little bit about that.
I am, yeah, because it's their first tournament that they've qualified to, their first international tournament that they've qualified without going through like regional African tournaments. So yeah, I sent them a few interviews, got some answers, just kind of how the team has progressed, since back in the day to now, and they're playing in North America now, and they're trying to make it up to Pro League, and so just kind of want to tell their story now that they got up to an international tournament, even though we're just saying it's not the biggest thing in the world, and they're an MDL team, but I think it's still an interesting story. Like before them, it was teams from Brazil or Australia. It's cool to see a team from one of those peripheral regions fighting to try and make it in a region that's not their own.
What do you think about that, Sean? That these teams coming into, I guess, your league, trying to make it?
Yeah, I definitely think Bravado is a pretty good team. I say that as someone that played them in MDL. They have like a lot of structure to them. I'm looking right now at like their stats, because I was curious, because you said they don't really qualify for main land, so I went to their page, filtered by stats, and they've lost 10 straight land maps, so that's not very good. But yeah. I do think they have a lot of structure behind their play. I don't think their map pool is very deep, which could be a huge problem coming into a tournament like DreamHack. But I like what they've done over the time they've been in North America. They've evolved a lot as a team.
Yeah, the thing with Bravado was always kind of the same, which was qualify through African qualifiers, go to a LAN, get smashed, go home, change a couple players, qualify to the next international LAN 6 months, 8 months later, go out there, get smashed, go back to Africa, change 2 players, and repeat for like, they've been doing that for like 4 years until they finally got this lineup and moved to North America. So hopefully, as you say, that gives them a little bit of structure, and hopefully maybe with a little bit more work they can kind of prove that a team from outside with hard work and dedication can kind of make something for themselves.
But they probably won't win this one, right?
I mean, it's unlikely. It's just cool to see that they've actually kind of stuck to it, because they've been in North America for, I don't know how long was it, but it's quite a long time, isn't it? It's maybe a year or something, or even a little more than that.
I think since the beginning of the year, was it, or maybe after WSG, something like that. Was it? Maybe?
But yeah, that's like a long time to stick to something, even though they haven't been all that successful as you were talking about. So it's just fair play to them, like to be able to kind of go through that and be able to survive it. That says a lot as well.
I mean, and you also have to think that they started in Maine. Their first season in North America, they started in Maine, and then they won that, and then they actually won MDL last season as well. Unlucky for them.
Yeah, but it wasn't a move up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unlucky for them that, and then they kind of choked this time around, and they lost against that Can't Win a LAN, I think it was.
They lost 2 games, 22-19. Like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the 2 overtime. Yeah.
Okay.
They definitely played really sloppy, but yeah, that's super rough to play a whole season after winning MDL, lose 1 best-of-3 in double overtime, both maps. It's just like, things just aren't going your way. Like that's just so unlucky. Yeah.
So,
I mean, considering the other teams, like honestly, like I'm personally most curious about. Well, first of all, G2. I mean, that's kind of obvious, just because they have 2 new players. We'll see how that goes and how well prepared they actually are, because this seems to have been in the works for quite a while. It just hasn't really been announced until very recently. So that's one thing that I'm going to be looking into. But actually, the one that I'm more looking forward to is LDLC, just to see how much they really bank on IEM Chicago. And
if they can follow it up.
Yeah, exactly. If they can follow it up, because if they do, they could actually be like a pretty like close to favorites here because of the other teams. Sure, you look at ENCE and them probably being like the highest favorite at this point. Maybe like with Optic potentially, but
Heroic
like
just won event too, right? Heroic
yeah,
won an event.
just won the Toyota Master, so that's another one. So it's like that this constellation of teams, like LDLC, could very well do like go out very early and at the same time go really high up. So like just looking forward to seeing if they actually do follow up on Chicago, where they did look like they could take like some of the best teams in the world to their limit. So against this type of teams, they should be able to be at least very competitive and potentially be like in that final at least.
I'm curious too to see the complexity. Like, was that a fluke when they were playing better and then they kind of went down a little bit? Like, how are they gonna do here? Are they gonna be able to show again that they're one of those teams that can kind of be considered a top tier team? Not elite, but like a top tier team, or are they gonna like struggle against these kind of up and comers?
Yeah, I definitely think Group B is way more stacked than Group A in this tournament. So I think complexity is on the right side of the coin right there. But yeah, it's kind of like which LDLC is going to turn up, right? Like I think they've been playing a lot better lately. They've shown they have a deep map pool. So I don't know. I think that would be the challenge for complexity in Group A.
I'm actually curious to hear your take on LDLC, because you obviously played with 2 of the guys, Manik and Duvek. So after you left Misfits, or you guys' contracts expired, have you been following those 2 ever since you were the one who scout them out and kind of bring them to the light?
It's weird. So like when I see them on HLTV and like there's not really any other matches going on, I'll watch them, see how they're doing. I think their team has progressed a lot. Like they're very deep as far as what they do, and they have a particular style where they have a lot of executes and a lot of set pieces, which is kind of how we were playing on Misfits towards the end. So maybe they kind of took that and brought it into the team. I know for a little bit, Amanik was actually calling in this team, which I don't think he is anymore, but he gave a lot of input in certain phases. he is a very skilled player, and same with Devo Duvek. Like that team has a lot of skill on it, and they have these strats that just get them in open spaces and potential to trade, and that's how they played so well in Chicago, in my opinion. They play a very simple style with a couple smoke splashes, very good trading, and they have skilled players. So they're like one of those teams that can upset anyone, in my opinion. Like them and Heroic should be the favorites to advance out of that Group A, based on that.
Yeah, Heroic definitely aren't to be slept on. They kind of fly under the radar a lot mostly because you have other Danish teams doing well, but also just because of all the changes that they went through. I'm actually kind of interested to see whether they can take this one. I was following a little bit as far as it was possible, the Toyota event, because most of those days were like 20-hour days, and it wasn't really possible to know when there would be a match on and when there
was
wouldn't
like
be.
ACS going on at the same time as well.
Yeah,
So
too.
I didn't watch any of it, to be honest.
Yeah. Mertz, I don't know if you guys saw, but if his stats, it was a BO5 final, but if you go check out his stats for the whole matchup, it was pretty crazy. I think he had a plus 50 KD, I think.
It was 148 kills.
Yeah,
over 5
almost
maps,
150 kills in there. And
Jesus.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the funny thing is that he was kind of left out of the whole North equation. They didn't want to play with him. They said he needed experience in lower teams, and I'm kind of interested to see whether this actually benefits him a lot. That he can just go and show that he's probably way better than they can do, right? I mean, he's kind of been very interesting for me to watch.
Yeah, I definitely think this Heroic team has a lot of potential. Like you go through there. I remember watching those EPL matches they played against FaZe, and FaZe needed those games to make the playoffs. And Heroic won 16-3 and 16-6. Like they just blew them out of the water. So like that's the FaZe team that was probably trying really hard to win those games. They typically, whenever I watch them in EPL and online games, they like split series a lot. I mean, the last time they played Complexity, they actually played them at Summit. Complexity actually won that series. But yeah, that's actually their lineup, right? That's their full lineup. So I don't know. That's interesting. Those two teams going up against each other, because that will probably decide who gets out of that group. I would put LDLC as slight favorites to advance, and then Heroic maybe like right behind them. But maybe Complexity has like, I'm sure Complexity did research at Summit. So when you play a team like that, and you're a team like Complexity with an in-game leader like Stanislaw, he did so much research probably before that match, and he could probably transfer a lot of that to this match that they play at DreamHack, because realistically, you're not changing that much in a month's time, you know? So that would give me a slight edge actually towards Complexity, knowing that.
All right, let's move on to the other big thing we have coming up. Again, 2 events the same weekend.
Actually, just one more thing,
Yeah,
right? Like, I mean, it's kind of funny that we actually kind of skipped over G2, just even though they are kind of a storyline, just generally. But I actually wanted to get back to them and see like what you guys thought about like just this just general movement, and just like a circle back to Shock's calling, which basically happens like in a cycle every couple of months, or at like every half a year, like Shocks goes back to calling and stuff.
I mean, talking about the dynamics between management and the players deciding who's on the roster, right? Or what happens in the team.
But obviously, like, whatever the original idea was, that was a little bit delusional, just because like you can't really rationally expect the team to work for a year until they become like good enough. So that's like, that just feels like Existence didn't really have the right idea on that, just because like obviously G2 weren't happy with like the team not making it past quarterfinals and playoffs, but them at least like consistently making it there. So that was obviously a team that was expecting a lot more from their lineup. So for Existence to come in and kind of say that like this is a really long-term project, like I don't expect this team to be very good like very early on. So just I feel like that project was just ruined from the get-go. And I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be any better, just because like I said, we're just going back to what we've seen from G2 with just 2 different players, and I'm not entirely sure that there's enough skill now in that team.
And what do you think about the Sharks IGL thing? We've seen it before.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it before. We've definitely seen it before. I don't know, that G2 though, they were dead in the water. Like,
Yep.
I even said it at the major. They looked terrible. Like, that was the one team, the one game, that G2 and Cloud9 matchup that I think Chad and I went on the desk and we literally just tore both teams apart. Like, every other game, like, we praised the winners, we praised the good CS we saw, but holy shit, that game was an ugly match of CS. Like, I don't know. I expected more utility, like smart utility usage out of G2, and I admit I didn't really watch all that much of them after the major because I lost interest. Honestly, after seeing what I saw at the major, I kind of lost interest. But their utility usage on Inferno, a map that requires good utility usage on CT side, I would watch them like throw double smokes in Banana. They would panic smoke places. They would use all of their flashes and mollies up in the first like 10 seconds of the round. It was like I wasn't watching a top team play. And I don't know what that was. Like, I don't know, maybe it was a fluke. But watching their other matches at the major, they just seemed like a mess. Like, they seemed very disorganized, as well as the fact that, yeah, their CT sides were very poor. Like, a lot of the times they would just get run over. That complexity match they played on Cash, the way they started that game and complexity just ran away with it at the major, was so abysmal. Like, they just had so many bad halves of Counter-Strike that I think a change needed to be made. But, I mean, you can easily say they could have gone this way or that way. Existence should have stayed on the team. Honestly, I don't know what to think about the whole Shocks and game leader thing, man. We've done this before. Especially now that he has like 2 up-and-coming players on the team that probably need a little bit of like molding. Is like, what's going to happen with this team? Like, this could go real bad, or it could potentially be like decent. I don't think it's going to be great. You know, like, they're not going to be contending for top 3 team in the world. Like, right? No one thinks that with this new lineup and Shocks and game leading.
That's my problem with it, right? Like, we've seen from the G2 organization that they're clearly not ready to invest into something for a long-term project and expect them not to deliver early on. So like, this is just another step in like the whole I don't know. It's all a big mess. I feel like ever since like there was that initial thought that original G2 lineup, like with those original 5 players with Apex and NBK, like ever since they kind of figured out that they're actually not making it to like consistent top 4s, making finals, like actually winning some events. They won something like 2 in the year and a half that they were together with that organization. So ever since then, it's just been a massive mess. And I don't think there's any getting away from it. I feel like it's just going to take like a step from the organization just completely away from the French. Unless they take like a DLC and try to build on that and somehow like combine with them, because I just don't see another way.
All right, let's move on, guys, to
let's do that.
to the Mediterranean. I already clicked the button. Actually, it's been saying Liquid for a while here. That's what I put. Will Liquid finally win? Because I think they're definitely going to be the favorites going into.
There's no way they don't. Like, let's put it that way. Like, I don't see. Of course, there's Energy.
Don't say
there's Energy, who's kind of been like a somewhat of a bad matchup for them. But like, there's just no way they don't win this. Like, I feel like.
I don't know, man.
It's so funny that you say that, because literally I was doing like Black Friday shopping. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I don't know what I was doing with my life. But I was envisioning this idea for the next time that I was on the desk, where I would have this chart that I make, and it's called the Liquid win expectancy chart, right? And it's like public, like expecting Liquid to win would be like the x-axis, and like actual chances of Liquid winning would be the y-axis, because there is like a direct correlation with this. Like, if the public thinks Liquid is going to win a game, they will certainly lose the game. But when the public's down on Liquid, that's when they make these finals. They like end up playing so well. And then when everyone joins that bandwagon, no, we can't have that. Like, we can't have that. They will definitely lose because you said that.
So let's just bring the expectations down, and then we can.
Yeah.
But that all goes out the window in a final. It doesn't matter what the expectation is.
Yeah,
You can't do it.
They're not going to win.
That is true, because when they play Astralis, the expectation's pretty low, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be some kind of like asterisk on there, like disclaimer. Can't
Yeah.
play
Will not
I
actually
mean, they played.
Can't play Astralis.
They played. I think Liquid played like 7 finals this year, and like one of them they won at Summit, and like 5 other ones were against Astralis or something like that, was it? So it's like
Yeah,
you have to
something
take that into
ridiculous, yeah.
consideration as well. But like even in the other finals though, like they were favored in both of the other ones. It was like in New York and shit. Maybe I'm actually adding one that's not even there.
Definitely.
But yeah, like they were favorites in that final and kind of choked it even like visually from the
I mean,
match.
and also
So
Astralis aren't invincible. Like,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but I mean, Astralis just generally have been a very, very bad matchup for Liquid. Like, their record is just something insane. Like, not even like other of the top teams have anywhere close to that bad of a record against them. So, like most teams don't, at least. So it's like that's an extra hard thing for them to overcome. To like being finals all the time, but being in them against Astralis, that's just another 50%.
I mean, that ECS tournament for them was pretty poor.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, that's fair.
that was by far their worst event I think I've seen them play. I can't remember a time I saw Liquid play
this
so
lineup,
badly
yeah.
at an event. Maybe Cologne, actually. Cologne probably was pretty bad. Yeah, normally they're like always in the top 4. So
I honestly feel like it was just a massive fluke, but Twist was definitely not himself. Like they were missing their best player basically, so that's already one thing that you can kind of take. But not even, to be fair, like not even Naf and Elish were really up there to kind of step up and make up for that gap, because like they're both also missing from at least one of the maps that they played against Energy and then against North as well. So it's like just Twist being, I don't know if it was, I think he was sick, right? That was one of the things that came out from that tournament. So that was, I feel like that was just like a massive chuck, I don't know, like a fluke that Twist was just missing completely. So you don't expect the team to perform all that well without their best player. So I feel like that's going to go away and they're going to be back to an alright level at SuperNova.
I also feel like going to an event like this and then maybe on the back of a bad showing and having your players fall ill, and then if they don't win here, or if they have a poor showing, maybe lose to NRG and come close with one of the Polish teams, then I think that's probably won't be good for morale, right? They have EPL finals coming up, and they want to, I think, take their best showing there because they need to end the season with a bang, I guess. So I'm anxious to see whether you've actually jinxed them now, Striker, or they'll doom themselves.
I mean, people will blame me anyway, so I might as well say it. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, like last time I did pick against them, but they lost anyway, so I might as well.
So you guys have no love for Energy or maybe Big to take it?
I mean, Energy, I feel like should have a
I
pretty
think Energy
good
could
shot.
steal it. Maybe.
I think Energy have a really good shot, honestly. That's why I was saying at the start.
Nah, not happening. So here's why it's not going to happen, right? Because they're in the same group. So what that means is that they're going to play each other in groups. Maybe Energy wins. They both get out of groups if that happens. And then they would meet in the finals. There's no way Energy is being Liquid in the finals. I don't care how much Liquid chokes in the finals. I feel like Energy is such a young team that I feel like they couldn't beat Liquid in the finals. Yes, they could beat them in like the normal stages of a tournament.
They literally have like the
is,
same amount of trophies, though. Right?
That is true. That is true.
And Energy,
I just can't
I feel like
imagine Energy winning
You
that
just
in the
made
finals.
it worse, I think, Sean. The jinx.
Yeah. No, right.
Fair enough. Like
You went too far in the
one
X
thing-
axis now.
Yeah, I'm
You're
going way
saying
too
one
far
thing
into
and
the
then you say the
X-axis.
other.
This is getting dangerous.
This is like
Reel it back in.
this is like
So Liquid basically are fucked because we just both picked them to win.
you're kind of a scientist
Very
tampering
much.
with your own data, aren't you now?
No.
So what about Hellraisers? I mean, they brought in Hobbit. I think they're probably not settled in at all. But still, I mean, it's not a bad team.
I mean,
The
to be
group-
fair,
the group is alright.
has been there for a while now. Like it's what, like 3 weeks, almost a month. So it's not little time. Like I feel like he's had enough time and more to actually get accommodated in this roster. So I think they actually will have a reasonable like go at this, because like in their group they have like Tyler, who's obviously super up and down, Gambit, who's just hasn't done anything for the longest time, and they're even missing a player. at the tournament. So, huh?
The only thing I was gonna say is that they haven't actually played LAN yet, though.
Yeah.
You mean Hellraisers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair, but it's like most of the time you complain about not being able to practice enough and just like getting acquainted with every map and with every strat on every map. But in 3 weeks, like that's a lot of time. Like Sean, yeah, I think you'll be able to attest to this. Like after 3 weeks or like a month, even if it's just online play, like sure you're probably not going to be 100%, but you're at least going to be very well prepared on every map that you play.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially with it's not a huge roster change for them. They're definitely a team that could win this event. I forgot about them with Hobbit on the team. Oh yeah, they could definitely potentially.
If Hobbit comes back to like at least close to his former level, because he hasn't been there for quite a long time now.
Year.
So like if he does that, I feel like they have a very good shot. But we don't really know. Like we haven't seen too much from them outside of online play. So it's like I'm waiting for that for sure for Hobbit and see if he comes back or not. Because if this team adds like two Issa and Woxig, who are sure they're a little bit inconsistent and a little bit inexperienced, sometimes just like go missing in playoffs and big matches and stuff like that. But if those two just get added another like semi-godlike player, like that's going to be a really dangerous team on like the lower tier.
All right, so it's official. We jinxed Liquid again, but we think that maybe Energy and Hellraisers can come close, huh? Or Bake maybe a little bit. Guys, so let's move on to our little betting game here. Sean, we're gonna cut you out for a while. It's not that we don't like you, on the contrary, but we'll bring you back for the end of it. So for those of you who don't know, we play a game each week where we go to GG.Bet and GG.Bet, and we find the best and funniest and most interesting, and I think this time safest odds to play, because things definitely haven't been going well. I've actually not found the chart this time, because it's in
the history.
It's looking real bad for all of I purposely
you haven't found it. Like,
didn't want to show it.
Found it.
Do we want?
Okay.
Should I do it?
Just show it.
Might
as well be true to ourselves, dude.
All right.
Like
okay,
I'm not gonna hide my track record.
Here it is. So,
I know you don't want yours to be shown.
Yeah,
anywhere.
that's mostly it. So we started out with €1,000 on the site, and then we bet for this is the 13th, and so 12 episode in a row, and we stopped winning around episode 7 or 8. For some of you, a little bit later.
That's basically like that's like this is the best explanation of why you should just be very careful when betting, just because like sure you can have a period when you're really up and when you're doing so well, and then you just like want to bet so much more just to keep on winning, right? And then it goes down. So it's like kids, be careful, please.
Yeah, and that's a general rule. Remember that. Bet responsibly. Quit when you've bet 7 times on matches. So we started out with 1,000. Prof now has around 1,500. You have around 1,500, very close, and then I'm below. I'm in minus. So as Prof says in the chat, it's actually you who started the losing streak, Lucas. So let's see what you did this time. This time we went for matches at DreamHack Winter and SuperNova Malta. So let's see.
I put in an extra little.
Really? Okay, let's see that.
Oh, let's see.
You're gonna make Prof some money.
Let's see your slip.
Is that like a CS Adria or something? What is that?
It's a Spanish LVP Super League.
Okay, let's go.
This is gonna be so good. So yeah, the first ones are just from the DreamHack openers. They were the worst odds, but kind of more obvious picks just to kind of get in that combo. But then the real bet is Team Queso beating Existence in the first matchup of online CS in Spain.
Yes,
and the thing is,
the team with those 2 Slovakians.
It is. And the thing is, what's really ridiculous though is that I think nobody actually knows who's like what teams are playing from the betting sites, and they put like the odds are like 2-1 for Queso, but they actually just beat Existence last week like 16-5 or something. So I just saw the odds and I was like, all right, I gotta put some money in for that. Like it's gonna be easy.
Okay.
All right. So, and then what do you have? Energy to win versus Kingwin, probably pretty safe, and then Uptick Bravado. Okay, so safe ones, and then you went with the homer for the end, huh? So let's see mine then. I did not pick a local one for obvious reasons. I don't think they even show them. But I picked LDLC to and Heroic to actually go pretty far, just based on the team's latest showings. LDLC in Chicago did pretty well, and then Heroic in Bangkok. And I think they're pretty close skill wise, and I think it'll probably go a lot of rounds, so more than 24.5, and I'll be a happy camper for that. And then I picked also Energy to win versus King win. It was pretty obvious. And then for the last one, betting on Optic hasn't proven to be like very safe for me, but I think at this point they should really have a big advantage against Bravado, who were playing their first, as you said, Lucas, international LAN in a setting like this, and the players on Optic should be experienced enough and have enough firepower to take this and take it convincingly. So I had it at a minus 4.5 handicap, so they have to win by 5 rounds more. Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, okay, never mind.
Hopefully this one will
Alright.
will put me over the top again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hoping. Like at this point, I'm just like, I'm not even being more careful than any other time. I'm just like waiting to actually break that streak. Because like the last time, the more I'm careful, the more I lose. So might as well just go the normal way. And maybe I'm going to get up there. But yeah, anyway, from SuperNova, I have Liquid against VP. Liquid beating VP at least 16-9, which I feel like at least as convincingly. So below 16-9 score. Just because I feel like Liquid are such massive favorites in the matchup that I'm pretty confident in them beating them in like less than double digits. And from DreamHack Winter, I have the other 2 matches. And again, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. I just don't have the trust in G2, especially in a G2 that has a new lineup. Sure, they could surprise. Nobody really knows how they're going to play. They haven't really shown up anywhere, so it's going to be tough to kind of predict. But I just feel like ENCE have like the basics down and everything to be able to take down a team that they don't really know that much. So that's why I picked them. And Optic versus Bravado, it's kind of the same thing as in the first match. I just feel like Optic are big enough favorites that they're going to take it fairly convincingly. This time I only put it at, I think, 16-11 and less. So yeah, I feel like everything's self-explanatory, but it's semi-risky with the rounds potentially screwing me.
We'll all lose, you know what? Except maybe Lucas will bet on the on Spanish teams. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe you go local. Maybe you should do that to actually win some money again.
I don't know. The thing is, like, I would have to know more about the local scene. Like, I'm.
Anyway, let's bring back
like
Sean.
every month. The thing is, like, every month I go back to like the local website and just look at what's happened in the past couple of weeks or something, and then I figure out like 3 of the top 5 teams are just different from the month before. So it's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
So, if you can bring up my screen now that Sean is back. Sean, I want to ask you something. Did you see this on the front page of Reddit?
Yeah, I did. Like, what's exactly going on there?
If
I'm
OGC,
sorry, my dogs are literally going crazy.
they like it. So before we get into the jersey thing, we're nearing the end of the stream. So if anyone has questions for Sean or the rest of the panel, please bring them now. We'll take some closing questions. They could be about OGC, Old Guys Club's minor qualifier run. But yeah, this is a guy who does a lot of jerseys. Actually, I think I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, his jerseys. This is the guy that made jerseys for all the top teams, right? Those were really good, actually.
Yeah,
Like those that other topic. Yeah, I think it's the same guy.
they're kind of
But, like,
Was that like a
God, will
vest?
not
What
stop,
is that? I actually haven't seen this.
I think it's kind of great.
It must be very uncomfortable.
There was a question
Or at
here.
least looks.
Who let the dogs out is the question. I really like that one. So there was a question specifically for the Liquid Astralis matchup that I kind of liked. Why doesn't Liquid ban Nuke versus Astralis and risk playing Train or Overpass? And I guess it's been kind of also one of the storylines from ACS and Astralis in general, right? The Nuke run that I think is still. They still dominate on that.
Yeah.
How is it? 25 or 26 now?
26, I think it is.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Why teams wouldn't want to ban it more?
Well, firstly, because most teams that have to play it against them have a map that they don't literally don't play. So even playing Nuke against a 100% streak Astralis seems like a better option, just because they might as well be that team that breaks it, right? Like at some point it has to go, has to break. Like sure, it's not the best argument for actually letting the nuke through, but if it's like if the option is like playing nuke or playing a map that you never play and then you haven't practiced or haven't played offline for months, then I feel like even then it's a pretty obvious choice, and you just go for nuke and just hope, or just like try to surprise Astralis in some way and just try to prepare for that, because we've seen a couple of teams try that and they actually got very close. So like at some point it's just gonna break.
There's a question for you, Sean. We kind of touched upon it, but we can end on it. How hard are you gonna prepare for the minor qual? I know you said that you'd have to kind of take it at least a little bit seriously, but still keeping, I guess, the spirit in the team, right? The kind of non-serious stuff. What's it looking like?
I don't know. I'll probably make so what I did for OGC and a couple MDL matches was I just made a couple like private YouTube videos, and it just had like a bunch of grenades, basically. Just like, this is how we're gonna throw the pit smokes on Inferno. This is the protocol I want to follow in Banana. But I'm not even saying anything in these clips. Just literally just me running around the map like throwing grenades, and it's just very self-explanatory. I'll probably make like a couple like really quick videos or something like that. And I don't think Shroudy. I don't know, actually, man. Like, he said he actually wants to practice, but who knows? So,
you don't seem very trustful.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's so busy with streaming. Like, I don't know. He's such an animal. Like, he just streams every day for like 10 hours a day. I don't know how he does it.
What about streaming your practice then? That would kind of fit the bill, wouldn't it?
I guess that could fit the bill, but who's gonna play us? That's any good, you know? I don't want to have their practice streamed.
So, I mean, do you practice a bunch against like top teams in North America or not?
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, do you actually practice like Liquid regularly?
Like with OGC?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't really practice very good teams anyway. So like those.
I don't think you understand. We played 0 scrims last season.
Oh,
we had 0 practices.
Okay.
I was like,
but I mean,
a little bit confused by the question. I was like, wait a second.
Oh, fair enough. Because then it's going to be easy to find at least somebody who's going to practice you and be all right with you streaming the match or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're probably not going to find like good practice most likely. So might as well stream it.
Yeah, true. We could get those like ESEA scrims. There's like a little tab for scrims, but like
isn't that like 100 times worse than like matchmaking even or something? Isn't that really bad?
We just we could matchmake. That's how we scrim.
That's another option. Yeah.
Go practice your aim in PUBG, right? Seems to work for Shroud.
We would literally be the Valve dream if we won the major but only practiced in matchmaking. That would literally they would love that shit.
And then you'd go out. Then you'd come out saying that you privately practiced on 128 tick servers, right? And then the whole major Poland would go crazy for it. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, Sean. It's been great having you on. I'm glad it finally worked out. Let's see how far you go. I'm personally very excited to see you guys in that jersey and Dr. Disrespect behind you and all that. I'm anxious to see how many memes the minor can actually tolerate. How far you can take the trolling.
You know what you have to do as well. Like if both you and Freak make it to the minor, just take a picture of like old like 2015 summer 2015 versus now. And just make
1
that
person
picture.
Difference.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean just
silent
grab
clock and Ryan in the face.
Freakazoid and do that picture.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah,
we could definitely have to do that.
Just in case you both make it, why not? You're both there.
That'd be great. Sean, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Also, Lucas, Striker. I have been Yossarian. This has been HLTV Confirmed. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and asking questions in the chat. Have a great night.